Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. A very warm welcome to yet another session of Weekend with Wisdom. This is Nitin Sridhar here. Let me begin with a small prayer. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavatyaptadehaya Shri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Today we have a special guest, Sri Ramaswamy ji of Vedanta, Kolkata, joining us all the way from Kolkata. And he will be delivering this weekend session on a very interesting topic, the fragrance of Vedanta in English literature. Vedantic commentaries, you can say, on some classical English poems, interpretation of them in the Vedantic light. So it promises to be a very interesting session, I'm sure. Just before we proceed, just a very brief introduction to Ramaswamy ji. He is a senior disciple of internationally eminent philosopher Swami Parthasarathy ji, and he has devoted himself to the intense study and research of Vedanta at the Vedanta Academy in Kolkata, and he regularly delivers lectures. He takes classes online and offline on various texts, Bhagavad Gita, and other modern applicable aspects of Vedanta, such as Vedanta for managers and others. Many of his lectures are there on Advaita Academy YouTube channel. You can check it out as well. Ramaswamy, we're very fortunate to have you again on our show, and I look forward to your session. Viewers, if you have any questions during the session, please type in the Q&A box. We will take up the questions in the last, towards the last segment of the session. Thank you very much. Ramaswamy, please go ahead.
Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, the end portion can be titled as the portion on Sthita Prajna. Arjuna is in a fallen state in the first chapter. In the second chapter, he surrenders to Krishna in that state and he seeks knowledge. And Krishna starts with Atma Vidya, and he covers and gives the entire message of Gita in essence there, culminating in verse 53. When Arjuna partially wakes up and asks a very beautiful question, very beautiful and pertinent for us, the seekers of the knowledge, because he is asking about the nature of a person of steady wisdom, a perfected soul, a perfected individual, and he titles that as Sthita Prajna. He asks the question as to Sthita Prajnasya ka bhasha. What is his description? How does he walk? How does he talk? How does he sit? That means, how does he conduct himself in the world? What is his relationship with the external world? What is his relationship with the with himself, within himself, how does he behave? All this is the questions that Arjuna asks, to which a magnificent exposition of knowledge comes from Lord Krishna in 18 verses. He gives a very glorious description of the soul, and not just the state is being revealed, the path to attain that state is also given step by step. So it is one of the celebrated portion of Bhagavad Gita. Now, Sthita Prajna, so if you ask a person as to who is an enlightened soul, you can describe him with reference to, let us say, who is absorbed in a super state of consciousness or something like that, which may be right. But of what use it to us who are at this level trying to visualize that? So he gives various other methods and methodologies to describe who is a Sthita Prajna. For example, towards 60 or 61st verse, he says, his wisdom is established who has his senses under control. So whose senses are under perfect control, he is called as a perfected soul. And he who is unmoved by joy or sorrow, and yet who is absolutely without attachment, but with friendliness, available for everybody. Like that, various descriptions are given from the point of view of what we can relate, so that it also indicates as to what is the path we need to take if we have to reach that state of Sthita Prajna. So in the description in 57th verse of chapter 2, he says, Yes sarvatra anabhisnehaha tattat prapya shubha shubham nabhinandati nadveshti tasya prajna pratishtita. His wisdom is established. Who is there everywhere unattached? Yes, sarvatra. Sarvatra means he is there everywhere. Anabhisnehaha, without any attachment. Whatever accrues to him, shubham or ashubham, merit or demerit, he is absolutely unattached to all those things. And when he gets something which is desirable, he is not jumping with joy. When he is getting something undesirable, he is not sinking with sorrow. He maintains a very steady wisdom. So, the person who is established in steady wisdom is described through his equanimity of mind. This is a perfection in human being. We can forget about the highest state of enlightenment, a self-realization. But we can think in terms of how a human being can improve himself to such an extent that he is able to conduct himself perfectly in this world. So that is a very celebrated portion in the Bhagavad Gita. A parallel of that is what we see in the poem that we are planning to take today, which is The Village Preacher. It is from a collection of poems by the great English poet Oliver Goldsmith. He is describing the village preacher, and all the qualities that are given and described in this fabulous poem corresponds to various Vedantic thoughts that we study, particularly with reference to the perfected soul that we said in Bhagavad Gita. How does a man conduct himself? What is his character? How does he be of service to others at the physical level? Meaning, what is his intentions? What does he carry as intentions behind his actions? How does he relate to wealth? That means his relationship at the material level, his conduct at the physical level. How does he relate to people? That means his conduct at the emotional level. But what are his thoughts within? how does he manifest his intellect? You will find all these descriptions are beautifully given in this poem. For those who are new, Select English Poems is a composition or collection of around 20 poems written by various great poets in English literature. These are compiled by Swamiji, when I say Swami Parthasarathy, and he has commented them from the point of view of Vedanta. This is part of our course or syllabus at Vedanta Academy. We will talk about this a little later in the fourth session when we take up the Daffodils poem tomorrow. We will get into this poem, The Village Preacher, because of the four, this is the slightly long poem here. We'll first read out the poem. Just a minute.
The Village Preacher. Near yonder copse where once the garden smiled, and still where many a garden flower grows wild, there where a few torn shrubs the place disclose, the village preacher's modest mansion rose. A man he was to all the country dear, and passing rich with 40 pounds a year. Remote from towns he ran his godly race, nor ever changed nor wished to change his place. And practised he to fawn or seek for power, by doctrines fashioned to the wearing hour. Far other aims his heart had learned to prize, more skilled to raise the wretched than to rise. His house was known to all the vagrant train. He chid their wanderings, but relieved their pain. The long-remembered beggar was his guest, whose beard descending swept his aged breast. The ruined spendthrift, no longer proud, claimed kindred there and had his claims allowed. The broken soldier kindly bade to stay, sat by his fire and talked the night away, wept o'er his wounds or tales of sorrow done, shouldered his crutch and showed how fields were won. Pleased with his guests, the good man learned to glow, and quite forgot their vices in their woe. Careless their merits or their faults to scan, his pity gave, ere charity began. Thus to relieve the wretched was his pride, and even his failings leaned to virtue's side. But in his duty prompt at every call, he watched and wept, he prayed and felt for all. And as a bird each fond endearment tries to tempt its new-fledged offspring to the skies, he tried each art, reproved each dull delay, allured to brighter worlds, and led the way. Beside the bed where parting life was laid, and sorrow, guilt, and pain by turns dismayed, the reverend champion stood. At his control, despair and anguish fled the struggling soul. Comfort came down the trembling wretch to raise, and his last faltering accents whispered praise. At church with meek and unaffected grace, His looks adorned the venerable place. Truth from his lips prevailed with double sway, and fools who came to scoff remained to pray. The service passed around the pious man. With steady zeal each honest rustic ran. Even children followed with endearing wile, and plucked his gown to share the good man's smile. His ready smile a parent's warmth expressed. Their welfare pleased him, and their cares distressed. To them his heart, his love, his griefs were given, but all his serious thoughts had rest in heaven. As some tall cliff that lifts its awful form, swells from the vale and midway leaves the storm, though round its breast the rolling clouds are spread, eternal sunshine settles on its head. Oliver Goldsmith.
Near yonder copse where once the garden smiled, and still where many a garden flower grows wild, there were a few torn shrubs the place disclosed. The village preacher's modest mansion rose. This poem is set around the time of Industrial Revolution in England. So the lifestyle was changing. The village was very prosperous and inhabited by a lot of people, but now they have started moving to the towns where there are so many opportunities for them to work and a different kind of lifestyle. So you have to understand this is the background of the setting of the poem. So there was a garden which was maybe well maintained before. It is not maintained now. There is a lack of resources and people there. And so it is described as the torn shrubs here and there. That is what the place is looking like now. And in that place, village preacher's modest mansion rose. We do not know if we can say this as a transferred epithet, but the person is of a very high quality. And that is being transferred to his house as a modest mansion. He is not a very rich person, but his house is described as a mansion because he considered it like that. Even in our Vaishnava Paribhasha in the south, whenever they refer to a great acharyas or a great person's house, they will not say where is your house. They will say where is the palace that you are staying. That means the place that they are staying gains a stature or importance because of the person who is staying in that house. So he is talking about a very modest mansion. It could be a small hut that he is staying, but it is a mansion as far as village preacher is concerned. And now comes his beautiful description. Like the Sthita Prajna, I said, verse 57, yes, Sarvatra Anabhisneha. A man he was to all the country dear. He was a person who was very much likable by everybody. Now, why does a person get this sort of a feeling from everybody? The simple answer is that any person who is unselfish in his attitude, he is automatically loved by all. He has lived all his life for the sake of others' well-being. So there was nobody who has anything against this person. He was a person who was dear to all the people in the village. And next is very fascinating and inspiring. He says, and passing rich with 40 pounds a year. Whatever be the time period, 40 pounds is a very small amount. His yearly income was 40 pounds. Maybe he got it as a payment from the church or his retirement benefit. We do not know what it is. but he just had 40 pounds as his income for the whole year. But how is he described as? And passing rich with 40 pounds a year. So here is a very important, a lesson for us as to what is richness. Richness or poverty cannot be understood in real terms, that is with reference to the bank balance that you have or any other assets that you have. It is always in relation with your inner feeling. So in other words, what is important in life is not to be rich, but rather to feel rich. Let us use these terms, aristocracy and richness, here to make this understanding clear. A person who feels rich is an aristocrat. Even in Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the knowledge is given to Raja Rishis. Raja Rishis are royal sages. Now, of course, it directly refers to the kings of those days. But then how do we understand Raja Rishi in the modern context? A person who is both a Raja and a Rishi. Now, who is a Raja or who is a king? A king is one who has all the resources under his command. A king is not somebody who is going to think in terms of when is my next, how am I going to, take care of my income or something like that, because he commands all the riches. As far as the material resources are concerned, he is well off. That is a king. But that alone is not the qualification. He says Rishi also. Rishi is somebody who is of an inquiring nature. That means all the rich people automatically do not qualify for this knowledge. A person who is rich and who is also inquiring as to what this life is all about, what is this world offering, what is beyond this world, who is God. If this type of inquiry is there in a person, he becomes a Rishi. So what does this mean? Now, when are we going to become kings and when are we going to get qualified for this knowledge? No. As far as we are concerned, if all of us are having the basic facilities and amenities of life met, what we generally refer to as roti, kapda, makan, that is food, clothing, shelter. If we are having all those things met, there is no reason for us to feel any poor. Anything and everything that is coming above that is a bonus for us. What is essentially required for living, if that is provided, that is much more than enough. Now, at that stage is when we feel rich. So irrespective of whether we belong to low class, middle class, high class, in terms of, I'm saying income, it really doesn't matter. In whichever class we belong to, what is important is how we feel about that status. A person may be having all the riches and all his bank balance is overflowing also, yet he may feel wanting, feel poor. Our Swamiji talked about a person who was working in his company in 1950s, a peon named Narayanan, where all the bosses of the company, who were all Americans still at that point of time, he was working in Esso oil company, and it was in Chennai. Very many Americans work there, and Americans have the generally, I'm saying it's not referring to any community or anything, they sometimes have this habit of spending the future income. So when in a month, 25th, 26th date comes, they run out of money and they borrow money from this peon Narayanan, whose income is probably 10% of their income, not even that. And he gives them. And next month when the salary comes, they give him back. Now, in this context, who is really rich and who is really poor? Can we only say with reference to their income or the assets that they have? This person who is a peon, he feels rich, he is able to save, he is able to live within his means, and he is able to lend to his bosses also. That person is a rich person. In other words, he feels rich. So that is the status of the village preacher here, that he has just 40 pounds at his disposal, but he is rich with that. That is the way in which his lifestyle is there. A man, he was to all the country dear and passing rich with 40 pounds a year. Remote from towns, he ran his godly race, nor ever had changed, nor wished to change his place. It is not that this poem is talking about towns versus villages, but as I said, the background of the poem or the setting is that during industrial revolutions, very many towns and townships are coming up. So whenever there is a change like this, there is automatically a peer pressure, what we may say as herd instinct. So people are migrating from villages, they are settling in towns, they are settling for, let us say, 9-to-5 jobs, and they are settling into a lifestyle which is now the norm or decided by the society at that point of time. Remote from all this hurry, worry, and all the worries, anxieties, and stress, he says he ran his godly race. Godly race here refers to the simpletons, the villagers who are all staying there. Again, I am saying it is not that all the village people are something very divine and holy and great, and the urbanites are something low. No, that is not the point here. A people who are generally satisfied, contented, and having a simplistic living, he is referring to them as a godly race. So he ran his godly race. They are satisfied in their living. They are content in their way of life. Remote from towns, in his own village, he continued. And he says, there was no pressure upon him to change. When everybody is feeling this pressure and they are changing their lifestyle, he did not feel it that way, and nor wish to change his place. In other words, this talks about his quality of self-sufficiency. See, you may argue, why not he also shift to the town? There will be a lot of people. There can be a way by which he can spread the knowledge further. No, all that is not his concern. Wherever he is able to do his duty to the best of his ability. And he did not feel tempted by the worldly attractions and the changes that everybody is going through. This requires a lot of internal strength and courage to continue with whatever you feel is okay and right. There was not a necessity for him. He did not feel that this has to be done. So, nor ever had changed, nor wished to change his place. So he continued in his village. Unpracticed he to fawn or seek for power by doctrines fashioned to the varying hour. With the caliber that he had, people can seek power. He commanded that much probably knowledge with him. He commanded that much respect from the people around him. But he had no such idea of gaining egoistic power for himself, selfish way of gaining power for himself to put himself in a position. In other words, okay, he may not be very much enamored by the wealth and other aspects which are tangible and materially visible, but some may be very much craving for a subtler rewards, which could be position and power. He was not concerned about that also. And he did not have that quality of being servile to others. See, this is not pride or arrogance. There was no necessity for him. There was no necessity for him to seek any favor from others. He always commanded his position by his simplicity, by the position and knowledge that he had. Unpracticed he to fawn or seek for power by doctrines fashioned to the varying hour. So as the world was fast changing, everybody was changing their fashion. He was not doing that. Why? Why was he not doing that? For other aims, his heart had learned to prize, more skill to raise the wretched than to rise. He has understood where real happiness is lying. Most of us, we derive happiness from contact of the external sense objects, right? So that is at the first level where most of the world derives happiness. Let us say some person works hard. You cannot say he's enjoying his work. He's going through stress and strain, but in the weekend, he wants to relax and enjoy. Go to party or go to a movie or just relax at home. So what is the definition of the enjoyment there? Just doing nothing or contacting any sense object by which you feel satisfied. This is where most people are able to relate to enjoyment. Watching football is going on, the match, you either go to the stadium and watch or watch in the TV, eat something. This is what we consider as enjoyment. At the second level, we understand that the enjoyment is in the work itself, engagement. Comparatively, very few people go to this. In other words, a person who is able to enjoy the work that he is doing, pleasure in engagement. Suppose you are a pilot, you enjoy flying planes. It is not that after my work is over, what will I do for enjoyment? That work itself is an enjoyment. If you are a software engineer, if you are a teacher, if you are a politician, if you are a cricket player, whatever be your area of activity, it could be. And mostly it will work when it is according to your swadharma. Swadharma means your area of interest, where those work come to you naturally. If you are able to derive pleasure while work, it is a higher form of pleasure. Will you not get salary? Will you not enjoy the fruits of the action? All those will be there. It will come. But you are very satisfied and happy that you are doing the job itself, which very many people in the world are not able to do. Because in work, there is a lot of stress and strain for them. Hardly very few people are able to enjoy the work that they do. So engagement is at the second level. But the highest form of pleasure comes when you have a mission. Swami Vivekananda says, your real happiness lies in making others happy. It's a very simple formula he gives. When I seek happiness for myself through sense objects, even in the work that I do, it is for myself. There is we are circling around this element of selfishness there. But blessed are those very rare few people who have found sort of a purpose in their life, a mission in their life. They are able to work for a cause. So such people are able to derive joy at a much deeper level. So to put it in a simple formula, no selfish person can be happy in the long run. No chance. It is only unselfishness, it is only selflessness that is going to enhance your happiness. Now, how does this come? It is not that one day suddenly you wake up and you have a vision in life. It is through sustained practice of knowledge that this idea crystallizes in you. For other aims, his heart had learned to prize. So it is not that somebody is telling him and he is doing it. From deep within, he is feeling that inspiration. He has understood what is the purpose of human life. All other aspects of nature are doing this very naturally. We need to gain this inspiration through knowledge, through association with great people, through association with those people who are already working for a cause maybe. So his heart has learned to prize and value those things He is more skilled to raise the wretched than to rise. He is talented in uplifting others. He has no personal ambitions. And that is why you can connect it to the previous sentence where he says, unpracticed to fawn or seek for power. No, why should I seek power for myself? Why should I be subservient and servile and serving others in a position where I want to seek any favor? Nothing. Wherever and however an opportunity is presented, he is always thinking in terms of how can he of service to others. Far other aims his heart had learned to prize, more skill to raise the wretched than to rise. Now he is talking about his emotional aspect, his relationship. His house was known to all the vagrant train. He chid their wanderings, but relieved their pain. Such a person, his house was open to all. Anybody can approach him. Whoever, whenever they sought solace, they would approach him. It is not that he is encouraging the tamas in the other persons. He gave them very lovingly scoldings also. He advised them what it is to be done. But at the end of it all, with all the pain and stress when people come, he was able to relieve it. So what do we understand here is that in interpersonal relationship, it is not the quantity of time that you spend with others that matters. It is the quality of time. If you are available by yourself for others, even just to listen to whatever they have to say, it is a great service to them. But most of the times, we are just not available because we don't have time. But it is the busiest person who finds time for everything. We'll see why. That's also going to come in the poem later on. So that way his house is open for all. He chid their wanderings, but he relieved their pain. Now, who are his guests? The long remembered beggar was his guest, whose beard descending swept his aged breast. He is a beggar for long, is very aged now. His beard is there. So it's a description of a very person at a very low level. Beggar is a person who is dependent on others for his living. That beggar was his guest. And then the ruined spendthrift, now no longer proud, claimed kindred there and had his claim allowed. Another person who was maybe a very rich person in the past, and he was a very great he was enjoying life in a nice way, but he is no longer proud because all his status and money is all not there now like before. And he used to come and claim, some people say how they are related with the fourth generation, third generation, some relation. See, always. So he claimed that he was somehow related to this village preacher, and he did not say anything. Yes, he went along with them and had his claim allowed. So this is another class of person who is now no longer proud, but he was once a very a person of high status. A beggar was there, a spendthrift was there, and then there was a broken soldier. The broken soldier, kindly bade to stay, sat by his fire and talked the night away, wept over his wounds or tales of sorrow done, shouldered his crutch and showed how field were won. A person who was an army person. And in the army, probably he has lost his leg or something like that. And he's a broken soldier. These people from army who are all like Kshatriyas, they have a pride, honor, pride. These are all their real assets. And they are comfortable talking about the old stories as to how they were in battles and how the fields were won, etc. And many a times they live in the past and live and recall these stories. Now, when some persons, some even old people talk about their old stories in the house, beyond a point we get irritated and keep quiet, you say, we are not able to sympathize with them and have a patient listening. See, there are some people who do this emotional service. There are some who are in the hospitals who don't have any guests, who because they are orphans or their families don't visit them. Some people take a list of those people in the visiting hours, they go and spend some time with them. It's phenomenal service. Just to listen to the old people is a very, but you need to have that objectivity to listen to them. And that is what this village preacher is. So he patiently listened to all these people. See, there is another poem by William Cowper where he says, they who truth and wisdom lead can gather honey from a weed. Now, he's such a village preacher who has all this knowledge, then all the great people should visit him. But who are the visitors? A beggar, a broken soldier, and a ruined spendthrift. These are all the people. But he did not complain at all. And he was very, very happy with them. He spent his time very nicely with them. Why? That's why he says, pleased with his guests. He did not put up with them. He did not internally think, when are they going to go? They are wasting my time. No. He was pleased with his guests. The good man learned to glow and quite forgot their vices in their woe. Every person has his guna and dosha. Guna and dosha means positivities and negativities. Every man has that. Who is a sympathetic person? You are able to accept that person as he is. And they are probably in some misfortune now. Misfortune with reference to money, with reference to lack of relationship, or lack of physical comfort, whatever it is. So that is why they are coming you for solace. So at the end of the day, you are able to overlook all their vices and you are able to identify with them and provide them with comfort. So what is guna in a person is to not to see the guna and dosha in the other person. And what is dosha or evil in a person is to constantly look into what is good and what is bad and trying to complain about it. So he was of such a nature that he was able to overlook all this. Pleased with his guests, the good man learned to glow and quite forgot their vices in their woe. Why? Careless their merits or their fault to scan. What is the point? Each and everybody's expression of his or her own past actions which they are undergoing now. So there is no point going into the merits. And very important line comes here. His pity gave, ere charity began. What is charity? Giving. The attitude of giving, we all understand first at the physical level that you give somebody some material gift or money. That is where the charity begins. Whatever you can spare for others, this attitude of sharing must be there. So this attitude of giving we can classify at the physical level as actual giving. In fact, this must be inculcated even in children. Even if you want to give it to some beggar or put some money in the hundi in the temple, give that money in the hand of the child and ask him to do it so that he knows the resources are given to you to share with others. So at the physical aspect is the actual giving. But more important than that is at the mental level, you maintain a charitable disposition. Charitable disposition means wanting to give, identifying with others and really wanting to do. Sometimes circumstances may prevent you from actually giving. Sometimes your intellect will say that it is not the right thing to give such a person such and such a thing at that point of time. But at all points of time, your wanting to give must be there. And it is not only money. Whatever is required for the other person at that point of time, that help you want to do. As I said, sometimes resources may not be there with you to give, but wanting to give, that mental feeling, there is no dearth of it. You must always have it. So it is tough, it is deeper, but you must have it. For example, if a person is having a car, big car also, Mercedes car he is having, but it is stuck in a pothole, or it is stuck in some quicksand or some sand which is marsh area or something like that. At that point of time, coming together, everybody and pushing the car, that is the help that he requires at that point of time. You cannot talk about his riches and poverty at that point of time. So you wanting to help him at that point of time shows your charitable disposition. Even when you are writing something for somebody on the board for them to see, you write it big, clear and legible, so that others are able to read it without straining. That is charitable disposition. So each and everything you look at it from others' point of view and think what and how you can help others. That is the, here pity is not, he is not talking about a weak pity. It's not a weakness. It is that others maybe are in unfortunate circumstance due to their own karma. There is no other explanation for that. But if you are in a position to help them, it is an opportunity that God has given for you. So how can I be of service? How can I help them? That is a charitable disposition. So it is not just at the level of material or gift of the money, at all levels, at your service, at your emotion level, whatever it is, you want to give knowledge, you want to give. At the intellectual level, attitude of giving culminates in what is known as rational sufferance. This is a term that's coined by our Swamiji to make us understand the highest form of giving is with the charitable disposition you give, but understanding others' nature to be as it is and allowing them to be as they are. It may sound very easy, but it is the toughest thing, because we want others to behave in a way which we feel is right. And that's what we see in this village preacher here. He just allowed others to be who they are, what they are. He did not interfere with them. Yet he was able to provide solace. So at the level of intellect, it's rational sufferance. His pity gave ere charity began. So whatever he could help them physically, materially, before that, he was able to give his heart out. That's what. So in the poems, this is given in italics to show that these are important lines that are there in this poem. It is the commentator's contribution. His pity gave ere charity began. And this is one poem where few such portions are coming. The first one is here. His pity gave ere charity began. Thus, to relieve the wretched was his pride, and even his failings leaned to virtue's side. Another fabulous statement. His pride, if at all you want to call it as a pride, is to relieve the sufferings of the others. A positive pride, you can say. And that is what he dedicated his life for. And even his failings lean to virtue's side. So that means even if you consider pride as a vice, as a failing, as a shortcoming, it was only that positive pride that he was able to help others. You can take it that way. But a deeper meaning is a person who is of a very high caliber. Let us say even what we began with as a Sthita Prajna, who is an enlightened person, or a guru of a high caliber, or a very high evolved soul. Apparently, you will find certain expressions of shortcomings or negativities in their personality. But even that actually is doing good for the world or doing good for the society. In Tamil, there is a saying which is part of a literature which says, Aduvum Nandru. Aduvum Nandru means even that is good. Even that. But how come he is shouting and he's lost his temper? No, no. That he is shouting is to take away your karma. You don't know that. You won't know the mind of a guru. Even his failing leaned to virtue side. What about Rama? He was shooting from behind. Even his failings lean to the virtue side. And not only that, in the characters portrayed by William Shakespeare in his plays, the best female character is that of Desdemona in the play Othello. She is having all the virtues of an ideal woman. So there, Shakespeare describes her in a very beautiful sentence. He says, she is of so free, so kind, so apt, so blessed a disposition, that she holds it a vice in her goodness not to do more than she is requested. She has all the positive qualities. If anybody comes to her for help, she immediately does. See, suppose if a person wants 1,000 rupees, when he comes and asks Desdemona, she immediately gives him. Immediately she gives him. After he goes, she sort of repents and says, maybe that person wanted more. Why did I not give more? This she took upon herself that she had committed a mistake. So he says she holds it a vice in her goodness not to do more than she is requested. So you call it as a vice or virtue. Like that it is. Even his failings lean to virtue's side. But in his duty prompt at every call, he watched and wept and prayed and felt for all. It is not that he is throughout the day sitting and just waiting for somebody to come and talk and thinking that he is doing a great service by... No. At every duty, he is very prompt. He never leaves any job unattended. Whatever is his duty, he is very prompt. And this is what we said. It is the busiest person who finds time for everything. Because he clears all the pending work then and there. That's all. So that is a person who is actually available. See, you also feel for others. You feel for the old people or the neighbors. You want to help them. But what to do? We are so preoccupied that we are not available for them. You may be physically, their mind is running. Oh, there is tax problem, this problem, meetings, that so many preoccupations that the mind is running. So when you are physically sitting with that person, that's what we said. It's not the quantity of time. The quality of time is not there. You are not available for them. But this person is not like that. Whatever and whenever is his duty is there, he jumped and he performed the duty then and there. And what was his duty? We'll see later. But in that in the duty, what was his attitude is that his identification was complete with others. He watched and wept. He prayed and felt for all. So his act, his duty was universal in nature. It is nothing that his duty was oriented to himself. Here's a fabulous portion coming again, marked in italics. And as a bird, each fond endearment tries to tempt its new-fledged offspring to the skies. He tried each art, reproved each dull delay, allured to brighter worlds, and led the way. This village preacher, his attitude of being a leader is being described here. Who is the ideal leader? An ideal leader is one who leads the way, who does not merely show the way. Whether you like it or not, everybody is a leader in their own accord. Even if you are not leading a team in your corporate, it could be a small team if you are leading. Even if it is not the case, you are a leader in your family. Your children look up to you. So what does a leader do? A leader leads the way. He shows how it is to be done in his conduct. And by seeing that only, others, they set that as standard and try to follow. If a leader merely gives talks and he doesn't follow, it will never work. If the chairman and the managing director, who are the leaders of the organization, if they don't follow certain values, you cannot expect the workers to follow that. If the leader of a political party, or if the leader of the nation, or the leader of a cricket team, if he doesn't set himself as an example, like for example, Mark Taylor was a great leader when he was leading the Australian team, very impersonal in his attitude. When he had the chance to break the world record at that point of time, when the team's consensus was to do so, he was stranded on 334 not out on one day, and he could have continued the batting. That he could have broken the Australian record, which was held by Bradman at that point of time. And Brian Lara's record was just 41 runs away. But what did he do? He declared the innings. For the team's victory, he wanted more time. That's what he did. So that is why everybody in that team were able to, dedicatedly and play inspiredly. It is the leader who leads the way. Bhagavad Gita says, chapter 3, verse 21, famous verse, Yadyad acharati shreshtaha tattad eva itara janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokas tadanuvartate. Whatsoever the superior person does, that alone other people do. Whatever standard he sets, that the world follows. So the leader has to lead the way. Krishna is telling Arjuna, you being the leader, you have to lead the way. If you run away from the war, nobody in the Pandava camp is going to fight the war. So leader has to lead the way. And here what he says, like a bird, you know how the bird teaches the young ones is that the young one is not able to come out of the nest. It's very afraid or feels insecure. So the bird feeds first the food into the mouth of the young ones. Then slowly after a couple of days or weeks, it is bringing the food and keeping it outside. It is making the young ones jump to it and take it. And then slowly after a couple of days, it is able to keep that food little longer. So in the branch, it has to hop and come. And then it comes to the end of the branch with the food in the mouth, maybe it flies away. And the chick has no other option now. The chick also flaps its wings and flies behind the mother. Like this, step by step, the mother bird allures the young bird, and it is making why it is doing so? Allure to the brighter worlds, because the sky is where the bird belongs to. It does not belong to the nest. That the mother bird knows. So this person knows that the people, they are not belonging to this finite living. They must be led to that infinite glory that they are. So step by step, he is leading them to that brighter worlds, and he shows it by his actions, led the way. Beside the bed where parting life was laid, and sorrow, guilt, and pain by turns dismayed, the reverend champion stood. At his control, despair and anguish fled the struggling soul. Comfort came down the trembling wretch to raise, and his last faltering accents whispered praise. This portion shows his aura. When we talk about the presence of a person, it lends charm. We talk about vibrations in a person. What is this vibrations? It is all his thought process. It is his unselfishness only, ultimately. So when is in the deathbed, a person is in the deathbed, at that point of time, the last thoughts are not in your hands. They are just resultant of all the thought processes that you have gone throughout your life. So there will be sorrow, there will be guilt, remorse, pain, so many things that we have done in life. All those things will crop up. So usually he is going through extreme pain, maybe at the physical level also, but mental agony also he goes through. What is the best service that he does to them at that point of time? He merely stood there. In his presence, all of them felt a great comfort. The person who is in the deathbed, he feels a great comfort. Despair and anguish fled the struggling soul. In the Tale of Two Cities, in the last scene, the the royalty and all their people are, given the capital punishment, holy, that guillotine, they have to be guillotined. And the cousin of the hero, Charles, she is also going, and she is trembling with fear as people are going in a line towards that guillotine. And Sidney Carton, who was a lookalike of this hero, he had replaced him in the jail and made that person escape. And in his place, he is going to sacrifice his life. Suddenly that lady turns back and says, "You are not my brother. Who are you?" And he says whatever he is saying. And the moment she is able to understand how much of a sacrifice that this person has done, that brings about a change in her attitude. She is able to now face the death much more easily. How is this possible? It is the strength of this person that gets transferred to that person. It is like that. It is the strength of the village preacher that this person who is in the deathbed, he is able to gain that comfort. Despair and anguish fled the struggling soul. He is no more in despair or anguish. Comfort came down, trembling wretch to raise, and his last faltering accents whispered praise. So the last thought that a person should have before the death is the thought of the higher, thought of prayer, thought of God, and that he was able to give. So he forgot all his pains and all other struggle. A sort of a peace comes to this person who is in the struggling way, and his last faltering accents whispered praise of the Lord. At church, now comes to the knowledge aspect. At church, with meek and unaffected grace, his looks adorn the venerable place. Church is the place where you go and pray. That is one aspect of it. But what lends legitimacy to any place is that it is a place of knowledge. Knowledge is the essential aspect of religion, the philosophy, the knowledge. And one who is able to convey it to the masses, he is doing the greatest service. Unaffected grace. Unaffected grace means many people will come there for many reasons, and some may come just for the sake of coming there. And some may be saying it's boring, lecture, why is he giving? Some may be attentive, some may be indifferent, but he is absolutely unaffected, and gracefully he is conducting his sermon. His looks adorn the venerable place. Truth from his lips prevailed with double sway. Whatever he is, whatever you are, when you are taken up the position of the preacher, you have to present the truth, not your personal opinion. These facts are those which are given in the scriptures. You need probably a guru to interpret them and give it to you in the way that it will be helpful for you, but you will be uncompromising on what is the truths of life. And he says, why with double sway? It will come emphatically from you when you are first of all knowledgeable in the scriptures, because scriptures is that which gives the truth. But it is just not merely being knowledgeable and your art of communication. It is coming from the depth of your experience also. What an ideal teacher is given in Upanishads as Shrotriyam and Brahmanishtam. Shrotriyam is one who is well read, one who is well heard, one who is well versed in the scriptures. Brahmanishtam is, he is not merely giving the knowledge as given in the scriptures, but he knows for sure from his depth of experience that this is what it is. So truth from his lips prevailed with double sway. So what is the effect of it? Fools who came to scoff remained to pray. Such was an effect that people who came there casually also, they were heavily impacted by it. They remained to pray. The service passed around the pious man with steady zeal. Each honest rustic ran. Even children followed with endearing wile and plucked his gown to share the good man's smile. When he was giving the sermon from the pulpit, he was a great teacher. He did that role perfectly. Once that was over, he was available for every person. As a commoner, he would mingle with others. each and every person in the village. So this talks about his accessibility. A good leader is one who is accessible. Not only he is available for the last person in the organization, he makes sure that the channel of communication is also open so that anybody and everybody can approach him. That is a quality of a good leader in any corporate or anywhere for that matter. A leader is accessible. So it is not that I am here in this position giving lectures and you're all there and from a distance you worship him and you go away. He is available so that people are able to come to him. This is a quality of any great preacher, actually, great leader. Till today, we can say anywhere from any part of the world, whenever they want to get an appointment with Swamiji, I'm talking about our Swamiji, it applies to all great masters also. Whether you write a letter or an email or a phone call, never does he say that I am not available. Within 24 hours, reply is given. It is like that. How are they able to manage it? We don't know, but that's how it is. So they are available to masses in general way also, but particularly specifically for any person to deal or to discuss his personal problems also, they are available. So that way availability of a great masters is there individually and collectively. And what about the children? The children also come to church. What do? They are not listening to sermons and anything there. They are in a playful mood, and that's how the children should be. And after the lecture is over, when he is walking and they are plucking his gown from behind. And what is he? Hey, be serious here. This is church. He doesn't say all those things. And he only smiles at them. So even to the last person of the society, even for children, he is a very, go to the first sentence that the poem said, a man to all the country dear. He was dear to all like this. Even children followed with endearing while and plucked his gown to share the good man's smile. His ready smile, a parent's warmth expressed. Their welfare pleased him and their cares distressed. His smile was very, very effective. It had that warmth. So he was a very complete personality, and he was able to, what to say, it's the same thing. His presence was a solace to everybody, and mere presence relieved the stress of everybody, from the child to the any adult or departing soul, everybody. Now comes the climax of this. Even if you have forgotten all this poem, lines in the poem, it is worthwhile to remember these 6 lines and maybe get it by heart also. It talks about this ultimate stature, where he is rooted. To them, his heart, his love, his griefs were given, but all his serious thoughts had rest in heaven. As some tall cliff that lifts its awful form, swells from the vale, and midway leaves the storm, though round its breast the rolling clouds are spread, eternal sunshine settles on its head. A beautiful simile given here to describe the internal stature of such a person. To them, his heart, his love, his griefs were given. People have this notion that hardcore knowledge, particularly when we study Vedanta, it ends up killing emotions in a person, is a wrong notion that people carry. Actually, when we understand the knowledge properly, it chastens our emotions. You may become detached. Sometimes it may be seen as an expression of indifference also, but that in no way lessens the emotions of a person. Rather, it makes him much more pure in his emotions. But there is a difference between having emotions and being emotional at every point of time. See, you can give to others what you have. If you want to give emotions to others, you must have emotions. Giving money and help us at one level, and that's a physical level. How do you help others emotionally? You have to transact emotionally, means you must have emotions. And emotions has to be expanded. It cannot be confined to a small boundary of me and my family alone. Which animals have, you have, I have, everybody has. How do you expand that emotions to accommodate others? It is through knowledge. A mother is able to expand her emotion and let us say bring the child into that fold. How does she do that? Automatically it comes. Yes, naturally it comes. It is that she understands she and child is one and the same. So it is that understanding that I and you are one and the same that is going to extend my emotions towards you. So a person who is rooted in the knowledge, he alone can give these emotions properly. And that is what he is. And he is able to give that fully without any reservations. There is no strings attached, no axe to grind, absolutely selfless in his emotions. To them, his heart, his love, to them means to the villagers there, to everybody there. To them, his heart, his love, his griefs were given. This is identification. His joy is my joy. His sorrow is my sorrow. If I'm able to feel exactly like that, that is called as pure love. But all his serious thoughts had rest in heaven. But where was his personality rooted? Here, heaven is given with capital H. So we can definitely take it to be what in Christianity talks about that ultimate heaven. Father in heaven, they say, no, whatever it is. You have to interpret and understand it to be the ultimate state of self only, nothing else. So a person whose intellect is rooted in the self, again, come back to where we started, Sthita Prajna. Sthita Prajna means wisdom. Sthita means that which is established. A person whose thoughts and wisdom is established in the highest, that is in the self. All his serious thoughts had rest in heaven. Does it mean that he is putting on an act with all other villages as though he's having emotions? No. It is only when you are established in the highest are your emotions also very truthful and very free-flowing also. Very natural in their expression. To them, his heart, his loves, his griefs were given, but all his serious thoughts had rest in heaven. And he says how it works. As some tall cliff that lifts its awful form. There's a mountain range. In the mountain range, there are several peaks. And one of the peaks is very high. So awful form here means it's magnificent form. So suddenly from that valley, this peak goes very high. Let me see if we can just draw this. So imagine here's a mountain range like this and suddenly a big peak like this. As some tall cliff, that lifts its awful form, swells from the way and midway leaves the storm. Storm here refers to all the clouds, rain-bearing clouds and other things which are there in the mountain ranges. It midway leaves them. That means it is there in the middle portion. This peak is growing high above those things. You have to imagine Himalayan peaks like this, where clouds are there and above the clouds, this peak has risen. Though round its breast, the rolling clouds are spread. Eternal sunshine settles on its head. Sun settles on its head. So here is the sun, and this on the peak here, sunshine is always there. Though round its breast, the rolling clouds are spread, eternal sunshine settles on its head. So all the emotions are there. Emotions he is dealing at the level of his heart, his mind. He is able to feel and he is able to receive and give emotions. But what is interesting is he does not allow these emotions to affect his personality. So there is a difference between, as I said, having and transacting emotions and becoming emotional at every point of time. Yes, sarvatra anabhisnehaha tattat prapya shubhashubham nabhinandati nadveshti. He doesn't rejoice, he doesn't hate. He remains unaffected. How is this possible? It is possible because eternal sunshine settles on its head. Sun here obviously refers to the highest state of self or self-realization. Settles on its head means the intellect is always rooted in the self, a person of steady wisdom, and therefore he remains absolutely unaffected. Such is the glory of the village preacher. A great poem by Oliver Goldsmith. Before we conclude, we will just listen to commentary of this poem read out by the author, the Swami Parthasarathy. Author means not the author of the poem, the commentator Swami Parthasarathy here.
Oliver Goldsmith's description of the village preacher portrays human perfection. The preacher's personality serves as an ideal for human beings to strive and reach. The village preacher led a modest and peaceful life, not enamored by attractions of the modern world. He was more skilled to raise the poor than to rise himself, ever dutiful and charitable in nature. The poet compares the preacher to a bird leading its fledglings from their nest to the open skies. He too allured his fellow beings to greater and nobler life, and himself led the way. The last few lines contain another beautiful metaphor comparing the preacher to a tall cliff. A cliff rises far above the valley and midway leaves the clouds. All disturbances of rain and storm remain below the level of the mountain's breast. The sun shines eternally on its peak. So too, the preacher's feelings and emotions for others remained with his heart. They never disturbed his serene attunement with the supreme reality.
Yeah. So before we conclude, just one of the reasons of timing this series of talks now is that next week we do have our annual Gita lectures by Sunandaji. It is open for all. It's the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and all are welcome to attend. You can register in our website. You can also pass on the message to your friends who may be interested. Thank you. The link you will find in the chat.
Thank you, Ramaswamy for an excellent, very interesting session. And viewers, if you have any questions, you can post it now. We will wait for a few minutes to see if there are any comments. As we are waiting, Ramaswamy, what struck me was as I see it, the utility of this commentary, Vedantic analysis of an English poem is that irrespective of the fact whether the original poet intended it to convey Vedantic truth or not, though I believe that as poets, as artists, somehow they work from their intuition, they connect with something divine inside. So even though without any exposure to Vedanta, they would have some intuitive revelation, so to speak, of Vedantic truth from the realm within. But whether that was the case or not, it is very interesting to me that these analyses are very helpful in a practical sense. They, of course, they do not provide any systematic understanding of Vedantic system, but at a practical level, especially I think the practice of Santana Dharma, the concepts such as truthfulness, honesty, it is very useful for mananam of them. What do you think?
Correct, absolutely right. Not only that, when we say the truths of Vedanta are universal in nature, and when we are able to present these thoughts from their own literature also, it will appeal to them as a very, it's a appetizer for them. then once they want to know it in the proper structure, they will be even interested to get into the depth of our Vedantic literature also. So as you said rightly, truth, if any person is in deep contemplation or meditation, the truth is one and the same. He is going to hit the same. So intuitively also, they will be arriving at the same conclusion. And that is why in our syllabus in Vedanta Academy, the poems is the starting portion of our this thing, to get a taste or glimpse of what these certain values that are given here before we get into the deeper study of Atma Bodha and Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads like that.
We have received one question. What books would you recommend to pursue this Vedantic analysis of English literature?
Okay, I meant to say this. This Select English Poems is a compilation by our Swamiji, and the small commentaries are given. There are about 20 poems here, 17 of which are small poems, and 3 are little longer poems talking about the deadly nature of human attachment, all written by the great poets of the classical English literature time: Shakespeare, Wordsworth, William Cooper, Samuel Johnson. So this is one of the unique contributions of our Swamiji, we can say. And it is available in our website also, or in the Vedanta World website. You can type it out, vedantaworld.org. They can purchase it online, or in any other center. We do have the physical books available. They can contact there and purchase. So for these poems and commentaries by Swamiji, this is the book that we recommend, Select English Poems here.
Thank you, Ramaswamy. I think we have one more question and then we can wrap it up. How would you respond to criticism of that we are simply superimposing our views on those poems and which are not at all intended to be Vedantic originally?
Right. So, see, we are, first of all, tomorrow, particularly when we see the poem Daffodils, this will be much more clearer. Whether Wordsworth meant it or not, how beautifully it fits into our, Vedantic pattern. So it is the way of, we are not saying that these poets definitely meant this only. And any great literature is subject to interpretation. See, when we take even in Vedanta, great acharyas in various parampara and tradition, they have interpreted the Brahma Sutra and the Upanishads according to their view of seeing the truth. That is why we have various systems of philosophies here, whether it is Dvaita or Vishishta Advaita or Advaita, various philosophies are there. Now, these great poets and poems, if we hold that in esteem, and if we see that there is value for the humanity in that, they are also open for the interpretation. Now, the beauty of Vedanta is that it does not impose anything. It is only giving the eternal truths and the universal values. If you are able to see that in that and appreciate it, well and good. It is for you to take it up and practice. So it is not saying it is our religion that is giving for you. Swami Ramatita says, it is your religion. It is your religion, you take it up and practice it. Vedanta is presented to you that way only.
Thank you, Ramaswamy. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's all about getting an inspiration from every source available to finally get into sadhana. That is the ultimate goal, we could say. And we have no more questions for now. So viewers, if you have any questions, you can reflect upon this lecture, and in the evening session, you can ask the questions. Tomorrow also we have 2 sessions. So with this, we come to the conclusion of this session. Thank you again, Ramaswamy, and look forward to your evening session.
Right.
Shree Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you.